Okay, hello. Welcome back to Hope Heroes, the Athletes for Hope podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mena Mirhom, Chief Wellbeing Officer for Athletes for Hope. And this is the podcast where we highlight our heroes, folks who are involved in the intersection of sports, advocacy, leadership, mental health, and all things in between. And today I am especially delighted to have a legendary guest with us here, Julie Foudy, who is a two-time FIFA Women's World Cup champion, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, former captain of the U.S. women's national team. And beyond her historic impact in the field, she's become a leading voice in sports, leadership, equity, and athlete advocacy. As an ESPN analyst, a passionate mentor through the Julie Foudy Sports and Leadership Academy, and I would say for us in particular, at Athlete for Hope, as a member of our board and somebody who has been just an incredible voice of guidance and support and encouragement. So I'm so delighted to have you here with us. Thank you so much for being here, Julie. Appreciate you.
Oh, no, thank you. This is very cool. Congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited to have it, and we're excited that today, as we're filming this, is National
That's
Girl
right.
Women, right? It's a big day.
National Girls and Women in Sports Day.
Sports Day. And it's so fitting to be able to chat with you. And I wanted to, dive more into that. But first, I wanted to get a little bit of your relationship with Athletes for Hope, how you sort of came to be, how you got to know the team, how you got to sort of be associated with this organization.
Yeah, well, Mark Levinstein, who everyone knows is the founder of Athletes for Hope, one of the co-founders who chairs the board and has been really the catalyst behind so much of this, is a lawyer in DC and a very good friend and has represented the men's national team for many years. So I knew him through that as well. But when he conceived this idea, gosh, how many years ago has it been now? We were just discussing that. What'd they say?
Yeah,
20?
just about 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 20 years ago. Um, and he said, "What do you think?" I was like, "What do I think? You know what I think? I love that. The idea of using athletes to inspire others to do good in their communities and to
Mm,
give back. And as we all know, such a big portion of the benefit, I think, of sports and the gift of sports is that you learn to be a better human in the process. And I don't think we talk about it enough around the importance of what sport teaches you as it relates to being a good human and helping others and service leadership and all these things. And so I just thought, yeah, I'm in. I'm all in. And so I've been on the board for 20 years since day one, and super, super proud of all we've been able to do. And super proud that now we have a podcast with
that's
Dr.
right.
Mena.
We're super excited for that. I mean, to be able to share the storytelling around this and to be able to hear from you in that 20-year journey, especially as you're reflecting on, as we were saying, girls and women in sports, how have you seen that sort of evolve? Both how are you able to use the platform, as you're saying, to have, to become a better human and to become more involved in the community? How have you seen the growth of girls and women's sports in the past 20 years? What's that been like for you?
Yeah. Well, when we were playing, and that was a long time ago, but when we won a World Cup in 1999, and a teammate named Brandy Chastain took her top off and flashed these, six-pack of abs and a sports bra and ended up on every front cover and front page of every magazine and newspaper. And we thought, oh, that's going to be the moment that people get women's sports and understand the value of it and understand the popularity of it. And, it took us another good 25 years to be at that tipping
Mhm.
point, which we always thought should have happened. And I still argue really should have happened back then. But as we know, it takes time to shift mindsets and cultures and all of that. And so we're finally now seeing this moment of incredible growth and energy and excitement around women's sports in general. Obviously, the sponsorships, the numbers, the attendance, and you're seeing it in soccer, you're seeing it in basketball, of course, you're seeing it in other sports. What my hope is that we're going to be seeing that across the board in all sports because
Mm.
I do think there's just really we're just scratching the surface of it. But the great thing is you no longer have to expend a lot of energy convincing people why women and girls playing sports is really important. They
Right.
get it. And so it's a whole different it's a whole different arena we're operating in, which is really nice because you did have to expend a lot of energy in the past of like, this is why you should support it. This is why you should spend on it. And now they're like, yeah, yeah, we get it. We get
I get
it.
it.
Let's move to the next page. What is possible? I'm like, yes.
That's the place that we were hoping to finally get to. A place of just, all right, what's next? Not having to make that
Yeah,
argument. And
exactly. And
it
I do
seems
feel like we're there, which is really nice.
Yeah, and it's incredible. And I feel like yeah, I'm somebody who grew up playing soccer. That was like my first sport before I got to basketball. And I feel like one of the things the world is seeing now is just the unifying factor of like the love of the game, right? Whatever
Right.
game you're playing, the passion for it. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of how you got to just enjoy the game? What was like your start like of just, falling in love with a particular sport and that journey and just kind of obviously getting to the pinnacle of that sport in every way?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough. I grew up in Southern California, and you pretty much get nice weather year round. So I was playing everything all the time outside, fourth kid, two older brothers, older sister. Um, and I had always gravitated to soccer, but honestly, I was playing literally tackle football. I was a little tomboy, did everything. And so I grew up playing multiple sports, softball, volleyball, basketball, soccer. And back then you could do that. And I got onto a club soccer team fairly early when I was about 8 years old and played with the same team for 10 years. You don't hear that today,
Mm,
right? That's unheard of. And we all came from like maybe a radius of like 10 miles. And now, you have kids driving 2 hours to get to a training session sometimes, or there's even like kids flying in for training sessions nowadays at the top level of youth soccer. And I'm not exaggerating. That actually happens. So it was very different. It was just this really warm, joyful experience that didn't have a lot of pressure. We weren't talking scholarships and college commitments or
mm,
any of that. And I now have two kids who are living the youth sports experience, and it's a completely different beast. And yeah, it's great that we have so many sports in college, and it's a really, robust environment for kids to play in. But there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of competitiveness. There's,
mm.
it's a lot for kids to take. It's a very different experience, and so. I was really lucky because I had, as I said, the same team for 10 years. And so soccer won out, but it wasn't until I went to college that I just played soccer. And then of course the national team followed after that. But that foundation of having one team and my best buds and to this day, whenever we get together, we're doing our cheers still. We were the Soccerettes was actually our name, true story. Green Machine, we were all green. We do our little nobody messes with the green machine chant. I'm like, and so teams for my entire life, whether it's my youth soccer team or my college buddies or my national teammates. I mean, those have been kind of the core and rock of everything I've had. That's where sports has played such a role. So I think though that first team experience is the most important. And it's why it pains me when I see, just how crazy youth sports is today, on so many levels.
Yeah, and this is something that we get a lot from athletes now, whether it's college athletes or younger, athletes as they're navigating this. We were having a conversation on Monday with a former basketball player, and he was saying, well, now everybody's a brand, right? And
Yeah.
like no matter where you are. So how I know you're a mom and a mentor and somebody who's sort of carrying this next generation and trying to guide them through all these pitfalls. Given that it's such a different experience and that it was maybe we could say like a more pure sport back in the day, and now there's a lot more
Right.
pressure
Right.
and so on. How do you sort of walk a young athlete through that? When a young college athlete is saying to you, "Hey, I know you're a legend and I want to, but I'm navigating these pressures and
Yeah.
challenges." How do you kind of walk them through that path now?
Yeah. Um, I was doing a podcast with Sue Bird once and I talked to her. She said something that really resonated with me and I pass it on to my kids because I said, Sue, what's your secret
Mm,
sauce to winning all these awards or being as good as you've been for as long as you have been? And her response was, I've never ever thought about awards. I've never thought I'm going to win this. I'm going to score this. She
mm,
says the only thing I've ever thought about is I want my teams to be successful.
Mm,
I want to win. I'm just competitive to that degree. And with that comes individual success, but most importantly comes team success.
mm,
And so, the constant conversations with my kids are don't get caught in this, I need to have this award or, this accolade or score this much. Like, one, be a great teammate,
mm.
first and foremost. And two, how are you contributing to helping your team be better? And so, um, and not to forget, like, this is joyful. Like, we've
Right.
sucked the joy out of it. So I'm always reminding them, like, just go have fun, go
Yeah.
be free, go play. You're with your friends. Like, my daughter just played her last high school soccer game last night, and they have 20 seniors on the team, and they only played the seniors, which hasn't happened all year. They had a total blast, right? Didn't win, but they didn't lose. They tied and they scrapped. And I'm like, and she's like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun.
Mm,
She's like, that is like one of the more fun games I've played at the high school level. And I was like, that's right, because you're playing with your pals. You're playing like just for each other. Like, that's the most important thing. So I think that is one of the gifts that I learned is the importance of being a good teammate in life
mm,
and in work and whatever circle it is. You always have your squad, you always have your team. And so how can I help you? How can I help you get better by me
mm,
getting better? Like, there's still that individual component to it, but like at the end of the day, we're taking care of each other. And so you
mm.
want those people around you.
I love that. And everyone's sort of gotten the experience of what it's like to have a great teammate. When people talk about, oh, this person's a great person in the locker room, this person sort of lifts.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more, when you're the captain of a team, right, and you're competing for a gold medal or something on that level, what does it mean to be a great teammate? Like, what are the elements of, if I don't know if I'm a good teammate, I want to like grow in that area. What does
Yeah.
it look like to be a great teammate?
Good question. Mina, you're a pro at this already.
I'm learning from you.
Uh, um, I would say the thing I had the hardest time because I am naturally gregarious and kind of
Mm,
outspoken and high energy is shutting up, right? Like, okay, to be a great captain and leader, you got to hear from your teammates. You got to listen to them. You have to have your finger on the pulse. You have to understand what they're going through. You have to be empathetic, but sometimes not sympathetic, because
mhm,
I think there's a difference of there's sometimes where you're going to have to be like, yeah, I hear you, and I that's terrible, but
mhm,
we need this from you. And so I think the main thing is I had to listen a lot, and I'm still working on that all the time. Podcasting helps for sure. Uh, but also, I think the most valuable lesson I learned is to be a good leader. People, the saying, they don't care how much you know
mm,
until they know how much you care.
yes.
Um, like, people have to know you care about them. And
Mm,
that's humans, right? That's just human nature. It's in our DNA. We want to be loved. We want to love. Like,
mm,
so as soon as you know I love you and I'm going to take care for you, I can go a little harder on you
mm.
as a friend, as a teammate. I can get mad at you on the field and you're not going to hate me for it. We're going to hug after the end of it. And we used to have these just battles at practice on the national team because we were all feisty, competitive women, and we would just go at it, like screaming at each other. I used to wish for young kids to watch us train because you could see the level we trained at. And then at the end, we would all be cracking up like,
Mm,
"Oh my God, who the hell was that out there? I don't even know myself. I'm sorry." Like, I got so competitive that this like, other side of me came out. And then we hug each other and laugh about it. And no, it's fine. You made me better, right? Like, yeah, I deserved it or whatever. So I think that's the thing I want good leaders to know is it,
mm,
and that you can pass on is like, it doesn't take a lot of time. Like, I always tell my kids, like, take, take 5 seconds to ask someone how they're doing. If you notice
mm,
them off in the corner, pull them aside. You good? You need anything? That's all it takes, right? Like, just a little bit of empathy. It doesn't take that long. And I think kids are really, they're like, Mom, that's what an adult does. I'm like, no, it's not. You can start this now. Why does that have to be adult? Like, caring about your friends is fine.
yeah, you don't
So,
have to be their mom. Like you can still
yeah,
care
you
about them.
good? Can
Yeah.
I help? Like just that, knowing someone's watching you, knowing, looking after you is huge. I said, it doesn't have to be a long conversation. Don't feel weird about that. Just show them, like, give them a hug. I got you. You're good.
And I gotta tell you, like hearing you say that, there's some psychiatrist genes in you for sure. This is all like this is golden, like evidence-based mental health advice.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah,
no
yeah,
matter,
yeah.
people definitely don't resonate or don't respond to something unless they know what your intention is and they know that you
Oh,
care.
for sure.
That's half of
Yeah.
therapy, honestly.
Oh, yeah. And
How
it's
about,
it's it's
yeah,
half of coaching, right? Like you talk to
yeah.
coaches all the time. It's like you talk to every successful coach. They're the most interesting successful coaches because they get that. And it's the hardest balance, right? You
Mhm.
walk this fine line of like tough love
Yes.
combined with love of like I love you, but I'm also going to give you feedback and I'm going to get on you and all those things. And the ones that are the most successful get that right, I think, is my theory. It's not the X's and O's as much. It's
Mm.
like, can they trust you? Can they take the criticism and want to grow and get better?
And when you're on the receiving end of that, one thing that we've seen this week in Athlete Mental Health Week is as people are navigating, if you're a star athlete, right, and you've got this like you can be, like, oh, I'm great at my sport, whatever it is, and then sometimes receiving feedback is hard
Yeah.
if you're at life, not everybody has
Right.
that. How do you guide somebody through, or for you personally, right? Like you were obviously incredible at your sport. What was it like for somebody to give you feedback? How did you like navigate that to take it with goodwill and like, oh,
Right.
make me better? Or was that ever
Right.
difficult?
Yeah. I actually was pretty good at taking feedback. I wasn't great at like watching film and
Mm,
analyzing things, but that was more just like it kind of bored me.
mm,
And I wasn't wired to, some people are it's all on how you're wired is what I've
mm,
learned. I was most successful and better as an athlete when I was actually distracted by other things.
mm,
Because if I started thinking too much about it, then mentally it was like I started gripping more, I was more worried. But like
mm,
if I was free to kind of do other things and be me, then I found from a mental health perspective and a competitive
mm,
perspective, I was a much better soccer player. Um, and I also learned that you can't give feedback the same to every person, and
mm,
especially, I mean, it's different with men. I think they have, but not always, right? There's sensitive men and there's less sensitive men, but I think especially with women, um, you have to tailor it to what works, So for example, when I captained different teams, my women's professional soccer team in San Diego, I had a player who was an excellent player, but if I got on her as I
mm,
could in games on people because I was feisty, um, I would lose her for the entire game,
mm,
right? And I started to realize, like, oh, I am doing this by my actions. Like, hello, like,
mm,
okay, so deal with her in a different way. In a quiet moment, gently talk to her about some of the things that are working instead of out loud, me with the veins popping out of my neck, competitive moment. And so I think that was another real learning experience. I have this conversation again with my kids. My daughter was a captain, right? Like I can hear her tone on the field, right? We talk about tone all the time. Like it's one thing coaches want you to communicate all this all the time. Another is to understand the ways in which you're communicating, the tone in which you're communicating, right? Colleen Hacker, who's this amazing sports psychologist who worked with our national team for many years, she
mm.
used to say, the simple words, come on, you guys, is very different when you go, come on, you guys.
That's so true.
She's like, it's the same words. Come on, you guys. Like, very confident. Like, we got this. Come on, you guys. We suck. And I always remember that. I'm like, oh my gosh, just a little bit of tone inflection is very different. So, yeah, I think recognizing as you evolve, like how you take feedback, how others take feedback, like everyone is so different. And again, I think the best leaders get that right. They know, okay, I can say this to this person. I can't say it to this person, but I can say it in this way. I mean, you still got to deliver the message. It's just you're delivering it in a different way.
Tone goes a long way for sure. I remember even a Seinfeld episode back in the day, and making sure. Why would Jerry bring a gift versus
Yeah.
bring a gift? Like it's a very different conversation.
I remember that one.
And it sounds like a lot of this, so coaches
I
probably,
shot the sheriff.
that's
I
right.
shot. Did you see that movie? My cousin Vinny. I shot the sheriff. He said, I shot the sheriff.
Oh,
Okay,
I love
sorry,
it.
sorry, sorry.
No, 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 that's exactly it, is that there's this, this tact, right? It's the same way that you can be better at the X's and O's. But it sounds like, generally speaking, in sports, coaches or players, like we're taught how to be better at the sport, not necessarily how to be better at the team management. And it's hard not to do things cookie cutter, comes to one-on-one. When you were working with, or you had a sports psychologist sort of on the team, can you talk a little bit about like what was their impact? What were some of the things that that you felt like they were focusing on with the team, or sort of in addition to like tone being a great example?
Yeah. Oh, we had so we had Dr. Hacker, Flash, as I call her, because she always was like a flashlight. She would like shine light on you
Hmm.
on or on dark places. She just like
Hmm.
she always has this clarity. She was always shining a flashlight so you knew where you were going. Um and she would do everything from team building, and we would take, and this is the thing that to this day gets me kind of irked with youth sports, is like
Hmm.
team building. I know you can't do it at the level obviously Dr. Clean Hacker does, but you could spend 5 minutes at the end of a session just chatting about something with the
Hmm.
team, right? Like, and teaching the team like caring about each other is just as important as running through fitness and the X's and O's and the tactics, and planting that seed early about what it means to be a good teammate.
Hmm.
And she would do it in a variety of different ways, from team building to sessions she would have with us where she would talk about, um, for example, let's see if I have one on right now. So I would wear one of these hair bands, and
Hmm.
when I played, you could back then. I don't know if you can now. Just a little elastic band, and um, I would say to her, I am getting really nervous in games sometimes. Like if maybe a potential sponsor is watching, or
Hmm.
a family member, or I don't know, a friend that hasn't maybe seen me. Like, and I was like, and I can't, like, it's just like the butterflies, all of it is just bugging me. I don't like it. And she says, and I said, can you teach me how to get rid of the butterflies?
Hmm.
And she said, no, 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 no. Don't ever wish the butterflies away. And I said, oh, I wish them away. I don't want any part of them. I don't want those nerves, right? And she said, no, 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 the butterflies. Um, she says, do you get the butterflies when you're doing the dishes? I'm like, nope. Do you get the butterflies when you're doing, like, maybe, you're cooking? And I'm like, nope. And she's like, exactly. You get the butterflies when something matters and you want things to
Hmm.
matter in your life. So don't wish those away. Just teach them to fly in formation. And
Oh.
I said, oh, how do I do that? And so she had this trick she taught us that, trick is probably not the the technical term for it.
Works for me.
Excuse me, it works though. She said, uh, what do you, I said, she said, what could you do physically to mentally snap you out of it? And I said, well, I wear these hair bands. And she said, okay, I want you, when you're having a negative thought that's causing the butterflies, I want you to mentally snap that hairband on your
Hmm.
wrist. Or she may have told a player to pull up their sleeves or pull up their socks or adjust their ponytail, like a physical action to mentally remind you
Hmm.
to snap out of it. But she says, and I believe this, you can't have two thoughts at once in your head. So
Right.
switch the negative to a positive. So you're going to snap that headband and tell yourself you're just fine. And crazy enough, it works. And so it's like gifts like that she would give us
Hmm.
all the time, of just strategies. I mean, of and once you realize, like, oh, that uncomfortableness is actually very normal, and
Hmm.
it means good things are going to happen. There's magic on the other side of that if I can get through it. If I can teach those butterflies to fly in formation, and that's the thing that became the life lesson that you always carry with you now, right? I actually get into television situations when, the shit's hitting the fan on live television, and, you can't hear the
Yeah.
commentator next to you, or, the highlight isn't running or whatever. And and I'm like, yes, let's go. Snap my hairband. Give me this. I
Right.
got this. So Yeah, you start to learn to like those butterflies in a different way. And I think that's the gift that Colleen taught us. And it's those kind of little strategies in life that you carry with you for so long.
What an incredible gift. I've never heard put that way. Having the
Yeah.
butterfly flying formation. That's because you're right. That is something that you carry on. It's not just when you're playing, but now the rest of life can get a little bit
Yeah.
stressful now too. When you're as you're mentioning being on TV doing ESPN things and sometimes things are a bit more stressful, or even if it's not necessarily a technical issue, but has there been an interview that you've done that's been like really particularly meaningful for you, like, oh, this was or a segment or something that you've done that you're like, oh, this one I'm gonna remember because this was, this meant something more to me than other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have the you have the big interviews. Like I've interviewed President Clinton before. Every time Kobe Bryant would show up at a World Cup, I got to interview him, and he was a big soccer fan, as we know. Um, but honestly, the ones that resonate the most are ones that people wouldn't know who they are. Um, I've done Little League World Series for many years for ESPN, um, and I once did an interview with a young man who I saw laying horizontal on like a bed where the handicapped area was. And he couldn't talk. He could talk, but not really. He could make noises. But
Mm,
what I quickly realized when I just stopped by to say hi to him is um, he had been a huge fan of the Little League World Series forever. He's been watching the Little League World Series forever. And he could understand everything I was saying, but he couldn't verbalize it. He could in like a grunt fashion. So we ended up interviewing him. His parents, of course, were excited. He was excited for it. We ended up interviewing him on live television, and it's one of the coolest interviews I've ever done, because he basically kind of I mean, we asked him about all the different teams and who he liked, and he could, in his own way, communicate. And it wasn't like, here's a kid with a disability. It was like, here's an awesome kid watching the Little League World Series who deserves a
mm.
chance to show all the things he can bring. And so it was really cool. Those kind of moments where Special Olympics I've covered, and these Special Olympic athletes are just so excited to have a chance to put on a uniform and be part of a team, and like that kind of stuff is really cool. And those are the things I've gravitated to in my career. Like I want to do that.
Mm.
Those are the things I want to cover. And World Cups and Olympics and that kind of stuff is really fun, but those are the things that I think are the most meaningful.
That's really incredible, Julian. I think as like the more research I was doing, kind of seeing throughout, your career, both while you're playing and as an analyst, I got this like theme that was throughout, which was like you're always trying to give people a voice, in
Mm.
whatever way that you can. And yeah, it's nice to be able to chat with Kobe or presidents or things like that. That's wonderful. Who doesn't love to chat with Kobe? But it's like really inspiring also for folks on if you're a young athlete or if you're somebody who is constantly seeing all of the social media stuff, that's a lot of self-promotion in general, and how we
Yeah.
can think about other people and giving them a voice where they can.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about as you were sort of entering like the media space and as you were transitioning from playing into thinking about how do I sort of give this voice? How do I focus on, a story that should be told? Because one of the things for us as Athletes for Hope is thinking about like the power of storytelling. How it could be so
Yeah,
powerful to
for
have
sure.
someone's, life.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really the beauty of podcasting, right? Is which I found. I mean, I always have gravitated to that. Like I don't need to do the big Super Bowl, 40 million people watching. Like I've always gravitated to how can I tell this story in a different way, or how can I tell this story for the first time, which is why covering women's sports for as long as I have has
Mm,
been so rewarding because now obviously we're hearing more about these athletes and
mm,
we're learning more about them. But back in the day, like just getting ESPN to do a podcast, we only interview women on our podcast. We've been doing it since 2019
mm,
or 17, even maybe, I don't know, 6 years, 5 years, 5 years. And so, even getting them to do a podcast on women 5 years ago was a big deal. And
mm,
so having the opportunity to tell stories, that's has always been my motivator of like, I want to tell these women's stories. And we are just going to do a podcast on women. I had a lot of my son, who's 16 now, was like, Mom, why don't you get, you know, Steph Curry on? Or I was like, because we just do chicks, man. He's like, why? I'm like, cause we don't hear from them enough. I love Steph Curry, but everyone knows about Steph Curry.
Right. The mom is
So
great. You can have Sonia. She's a wonderful person to
yeah.
chat
Yeah, that's actually what he said. That was his
with.
response, right? I said, I know that's a good one. I might do that one. But yeah, that has always been kind of the catalyst to everything I do in media is how can we tell these stories that people aren't hearing about? And that's actually what I really like. I came kind of to podcasting with my feet dragging. I thought even 5 years ago, like, God, everyone's doing this 6 years ago. And do I want to get in that space? And then I realized, like, oh my gosh, it's the coolest way to talk to people.
Yeah.
There's no cameras, there's no lights. It's just you guys. I mean, obviously, Zoom has helped. And COVID, I used to go to everyone's house before and do it, which was a whole different setup. But like now you can do it from your office, which isn't nearly as nice, but it's still practical. And it's really cool because it's just a different format for getting to storytell in a really cool way.
And as you were, you've had a ton of great conversations, and I've watched, some of them. Are any of the podcast conversations one that stick out to you that say, oh, like, this is something that changed the way I see, women's sports, or something that was sort of new to you in a way?
Oh my gosh. Literally every episode, I'm like, oh my God, there's like something you take away and you're like, holy shit, that was amazing. I don't know if you know about the ultra marathoner, Courtney Dauwalter.
Mm.
She runs ultra long races and does like 100 miles through the mountains, and she's amazing, and she does them like back to back to back. She did one summer where she did like three in a row, finished top. They're co-ed too, like she's finishing top of all of them.
Wow.
I mean, she's crushing. And she talked about the whole mental side of
Mm.
the pain cave, which blew my mind. She said, I used to uh really avoid the pain cave
Mm.
and not look forward to it. And then I just changed my mindset about it of like, I'm going to start accepting the pain cave. And the pain cave, of course, is what athletes often refer to as this place they get to where it's like, I don't know if I can go on anymore
Mm.
and I'm done. And she said, I just said, I'm going to have a party in the pain cave.
Party in the
And
paint
so,
cave.
yeah. So she said, I would visualize me like chipping away at this cave and having this party with my hard hat on, and I'm just making the cave bigger so more people can fit in it and I can enjoy it more. And so she had this whole mental strategy to convincing her body, like, actually, you're going to be fine and
Mm.
you're going to keep going and it's going to be a party and it's going to be fun. And she eats pizza and drinks beer too along the way. So I'm like, you're my favorite human. I can't. So, anyways, it's like those kind of stories you hear all the time that you're like, okay, I love this.
That's another keeper. Party in the pain cave is going to be one that's going
Yeah.
to tattoo that somewhere. That's that's
And it's so crazy because when I don't train anywhere where I used to, but like when you're doing something or in life and you're like, this stinks, and then
yeah.
you're like, Courtney, party in the pain cave. We can do hard things, people. Let's go.
That's actually one of my favorite books. There's a book that I talk. It was written by high school students, just called "Do Hard Things," and just how do you navigate that difficulty? Maybe it's the pain cave, right? Of just
Right.
oftentimes when we get discouraged, we get pushed back.
Mental. It's mental.
Mental, yeah. As you were having these powerful conversations in the podcast and kind of throughout your time in ESPN, when you're reflecting about yourself, let's say a young Julie, if you were just going into, getting into international competition, is if you had a chance to have a chat with yourself, is there something that you would say to your younger self? Say, oh, this is a thing that I wish I knew when I was then.
Mm. Yeah, I think I would. The crazy thing is I was a really confident kid. Loudy Foudy was my nickname, Rowdy Foudy. But you always, as a kid, and especially think with women, we want to check every box.
Mm.
We want, like, I don't know if I can raise my hand until I check every box. And I was very much, I had to prep, I had to know my stuff. And I look back on my television career, and I had a chance where I could have switched from analyst reporter to more of a host.
Mm,
And I didn't at the time understand the value of that, like what that skill set would bring to the equation. Because if you can host, you can pretty much do anything, right?
right.
You can do any sport. You already have the analyst side. I already know how to report. I can put a story together. It's
Mm,
that last piece of the equation, and it opens up your lens to doing so much more.
mm,
And it's really actually what I love to do is moderate
mm,
and not be the one talking the whole time, but be the one that's curious and asking questions and getting stories from other people. And so I look back on this moment and I said to the guy, ah, I said, host, I can't do that. What, are you
um,
crazy? I
mm,
said to him, my boss, I was like, I don't think I could do that. I don't have the skill set for that. Well, no kidding. Of course you don't have the skill set. I wish someone had said, yeah, no kidding. That's the point. We're going to teach you how to have the skill set and you're
right.
going to learn how to do it. And so I didn't raise my hand. I didn't say
Mm,
yes. And as my friend Mary Carrillo, who's an amazing broadcaster, said to me, be the idiot who says yes all the time,
mm.
right? She's like, that was my key is they'd be like, hey, you want to call ice skating at the Olympics? And she said, and this idiot said yes. Do you want to host a late night talk show for NBC Olympics? This idiot said yes. I was like, why didn't you tell me that before they asked me? So I would say that's what I would tell my younger self. Be the idiot who says yes to everything. And then as you get older, you realize, like, oh, I can only fit so much on this plate
Mm.
for me to be effective. But you dabble and you figure out what works, and then you can kind of organize your plate better. But in the beginning, you got to say yes to everything.
I love that, especially when it's not just us sort of setting limits on ourselves and saying, "Oh, I don't, I'm saying no because I can't." It's different to be able to say no because it's not a good fit or not what I want to focus on right now. But it's very hard, I think, for as we're like learning and growing to have you could be confident in one way, but at the same time saying, I don't really have what it takes to do.
Yeah. Oh,
Being
yeah.
the idiot that says yes is God goes
Yeah.
along. Well, I mean, I could keep you here all day, but I want to get you out of here on this. And there's nothing better than being able to chat with you and get all of these different lenses of, your career
Uh,
playing as an analyst. I mean, it's been incredibly informative. Um, I would say if there's, that was the advice that you gave to your young self. And when you're seeing the sport now and you're seeing how the women's sports landscape looks, as it's coming up, what would be sort of your hope for the future? What would you love to see in 10, 15, 20 years for women's sports, how it's covered, how it's played, how the team is, just kind of the Julie future.
yeah. I would say that my hope is that they continue, of course, to crush. And crushing can mean a multiple of things on the women's
Mm,
sports front, but like crushing with attendance and sponsorship revenue and media rights and all those uh, data points that are important to the sport growing. But the thing that has always set women's sports apart for me is something actually very much in line with Athletes for Hope is that it's not just about the crushing and the winning and the success. It's and you're winning and what are you doing? What are you making in terms of your impact on social justice or your impact on other teammates around you or your community or what are you doing with that success?
mm,
It means nothing to me to have a big building with your name on it, right? It means nothing to me to have a boat with your name on it. Like, what are you doing with that? And that's where women's sports is so cool because you look at all these female athletes, they're not just amazing athletes, they're incredible role models that care deeply about making life better for those around them and caring and servant leadership and all these things that Athletes for Hope stands for, which is why you have all these amazing athletes that get this. And so that's my hope with women's sports is that component of it, which is really, I think, the biggest gift of these athletes and their success is that they're constantly thinking about giving back to others. And that's where I hope we see growth in so many different areas going forward.
it's incredibly powerful. And it's one of the ways maybe tied into something else that you said. It's like understanding that being a great teammate expands not just the team that you're playing with, but your community is part of your team. People you
Yeah,
live around
totally.
all on my team, and I want to
Yeah.
be a great teammate for them too. I'm just so grateful for both like your example, your role in the community, what you've been doing throughout your career and afterwards, and with us at Athletes for Hope. I'm just incredibly inspired every time I
Aw,
hear your
thanks,
voice. And
Mena.
this is big bucket list thing for me. So I thank you for that, and thanks for
Aw.
tuning in for those who were with us today. And definitely continue to follow our Hope Heroes podcast, our Athletes for Hope podcast, and we'll see you next episode.